The desperate plea. The air on Orvax 9 was heavy, filled with smoke from nearby factories and dust from the endless streets. The twin suns were setting, casting an orange glow over the crowded market. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved through the narrow alleys, their eyes filled with worry and exhaustion. Survival was hard here, and kindness was rare. Larea ran through the crowd, her breath shallow and fast. Her long blue hair flowed behind her, and her violet eyes were filled with fear. In her hand, she held a small glowing device, a medical scanner. It showed the same result again and again. Her brother, Ryan, was dying. His body was weak, and without the medicine, he would not survive. She stopped at a small stall where a rough-looking alien with sharp teeth and dark eyes stood. He was known as Targus, a black market dealer. Laraya's hands trembled as she showed him the scanner. "I need human medicine," she whispered, her voice desperate. "Please, my brother is sick." Targus laughed coldly. "Human medicine? That is rare, girl. Very rare, and very expensive." "I'll pay anything," Laraya said quickly, pulling out a small bag of credits. It was all she had. Targus glanced at the bag and shook his head. "Not enough. Human medicine costs more than your life." Tears welled in Laraya's eyes. "Please, he's just a child." Targus leaned closer, his voice harsh. "Go home, little girl. Your brother's fate is sealed." Laraya stumbled back, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt hopeless. She had tried everything. There was no more time. Ryan's fever was getting worse every hour. She turned to leave, her steps heavy, when she heard a voice behind her. "Wait," the voice said. Laraya turned around and saw a tall figure standing in the shadows. He stepped forward, revealing his face. It was a human, a rare sight on Orvax 9. His dark brown hair was messy, and his green eyes were calm but serious. His name was Elias Carter. Targus frowned. "Stay out of this, human. This is none of your concern." Elias ignored him and looked directly at Laraya. "You need human medicine." Laraya nodded, hope flickering in her eyes. "Yes, my brother, he's very sick." Elias hesitated for a moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small vial filled with a glowing blue liquid. Laraya gasped. It was the medicine. Exactly what Ryan needed. Targus's eyes widened. "You fool. You would give that away." Elias's voice was calm but firm. "She needs it more than I do." Laraya's hand shook as she reached for the vial. But then she stopped. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why would you help me?" Elias's eyes softened. "Because, sometimes, doing the right thing is more important than survival." Laraya took the vial, her heart pounding with relief and confusion. She whispered, "Thank you." But before she could leave, loud footsteps echoed through the market. A group of armored guards, led by a stern-faced alien officer, appeared. Their eyes locked onto Elias. "There he is," the officer shouted. "Human scum. Selling medicine to aliens is illegal." Panic shot through Laraya. "They're after you." Elias nodded. "Giving human medicine to aliens is a crime here." Laraya's eyes filled with guilt. "But you knew that, and you still gave me the medicine." Elias smiled faintly. "Your brother's life is worth it." The guards moved closer, weapons ready. Elias looked at Laraya. "Run." Laraya shook her head. "No, I can't leave you." "You have to." Elias insisted. "Save your brother. That's all that matters now." Tears streamed down Laraya's face. She clutched the vial tightly and whispered, "I won't forget this." Elias gave her one last nod. "Go." Laraya turned and ran as fast as she could, disappearing into the crowd. The guards pushed through the market, chasing after Elias. He didn't run. He stood still, raising his hands in surrender. One of the guards grabbed him roughly. "You humans never learn." Elias chuckled softly. "Maybe not, but sometimes We do the right thing anyway. As the guards dragged him away, Elias's thoughts were not on his own fate. They were on the young alien girl who now had a chance to save her brother's life. And in that moment, he knew his choice had been worth it. Far away, Lariah reached her small home. She rushed to Ryan's bedside, tears streaming down her face. She carefully gave him the medicine. Slowly, his breathing steadied, and his fever began to drop. Relief washed over her, but guilt remained heavy in her heart. She whispered softly, "I'll save you, Elias. I promise." The night grew darker, and the stars above Orvax 9 shimmered like silent witnesses to a sacrifice made not out of duty, but out of pure human kindness. The impossible choice. Lariah sat beside her brother's bed, her hands tightly gripping the empty vial. Ryan's breathing was steady now, and his fever had finally broken. Relief flooded her heart, but it was short-lived. Her mind kept returning to the moment Elias handed her the medicine. Why? Why would a human, a stranger, give away something so valuable? Something that could have saved his own people. Tears filled her violet eyes as guilt twisted in her chest. Elias was captured because of her. She had seen the determination in his eyes, the acceptance of his fate, but she couldn't accept it. She whispered softly, "I owe him everything." Suddenly, Ryan stirred, his small hand reaching for hers. "Lariah, what happened?" he asked weakly. She forced a smile, brushing his dark hair from his forehead. "You're going to be okay now. Just rest, Ryan." But her mind was already made up. She couldn't let Elias suffer for saving her brother. She had to do something. The next day, Lariah made her way through the bustling city, her heart pounding with each step. She knew where the human prisoners were kept, a towering facility known as the Iron Citadel. No one had ever escaped from there, but she had to try. She approached a dimly lit alley where whispers of rebellion echoed through the shadows. The underground resistance was her only hope, but it was dangerous. They weren't heroes. They were opportunists. Still, she had no choice. "Looking for trouble, little girl," a voice rasped behind her. Lariah turned to see a hooded figure, eyes gleaming like a predator's. "I need help," she said firmly. "A human saved my brother's life. Now he's imprisoned. I need to get him out." The figure chuckled. "A human? Why waste your time?" "Because he didn't waste his time saving me," Lariah shot back. The figure studied her, intrigued. Brave words for someone so young, but breaking into the citadel. Impossible. "I'll do whatever it takes," Lariah said, her voice unwavering. The figure smirked. "Then you've come to the right place." Inside the Iron Citadel, Elias sat in a cold, dark cell, his hands chained to the wall. The guards hadn't been gentle. His face bore bruises, and pain shot through his body with every movement. But his mind wasn't on himself. He thought about the alien girl, Lariah, and her sick brother. He hoped the medicine worked. If his suffering meant saving a life, then it was worth it. A guard slammed the cell door open. "Your trial is tomorrow, human. Enjoy your last night." Elias chuckled softly. "I'll try." But deep down, he knew his time was running out. Lariah returned home that night, her mind racing with plans and risks. The resistance had agreed to help, but not for free. She had promised them something she didn't even have: access codes to the human spaceports. She sat beside Ryan, who was finally awake and smiling weakly. "You look worried," he whispered. She forced a smile. "It's nothing." But Ryan knew her too well. "You're going to save him, aren't you?" Lariah's eyes widened. "How did you?" "I heard you talking," he said softly. "You don't have to do this, Lariah." "Yes, I do," she replied. "He saved you. Now I have to save him." Ryan's eyes filled with fear. "But what if you don't come back?" Lariah hugged him tightly. "I will. I promise." The next day, the plan was set in motion. Lariah, along with 3 members of the resistance, made their way to the citadel. The building loomed over them like a monstrous beast. "Once we're inside, we don't have much time," one of the rebels whispered. Lariah nodded, her heart pounding. "Elias, hold on. I'm coming." They slipped through the shadows, disabling security systems and avoiding patrols. But Lariah noticed something strange. The resistance members were more focused on stealing data and weapons than rescuing Elias. "Wait," she whispered. "We need to find the human prisoner." One of them smirked. "Relax, girl. We'll get your hero. But first, we have our own mission." Lariah's heart sank. She had been naive. This wasn't just about saving Elias. The resistance wanted to use his rescue as a distraction for their real goal, starting a war. No, this isn't right. She had to make a choice. Follow the rebels and risk Elias's life, or go on her own and risk everything. Her choice was clear. She turned down a different corridor, leaving the rebels behind. She moved quickly, searching for the cells. Time was running out. Finally, she found him. Elias sat in the corner, looking up in surprise as she unlocked the door. "Lariah," he whispered in disbelief. She smiled. "I'm here to save you." But before they could escape, alarms blared throughout the citadel. "Prison break. Seal all exits." Elias grabbed her hand. "We need to move. Now." But Lariah knew this was only the beginning. Betrayal and capture. Lariah's heart pounded in her chest as the blaring alarms echoed through the iron citadel. Red warning lights flashed across the cold, metallic walls, casting eerie shadows. She clutched Elias's hand tightly as they sprinted down the narrow hallway, every step bringing them closer to either freedom or capture. Elias, despite his injuries, kept pace beside her. His sharp green eyes scanned their surroundings, calculating their next move. "We need an exit," he said, breathless but focused. "Fast." Lariah's mind raced. She knew the layout from the stolen plans the resistance had given her. But with the alarms triggered, every door would be locked, every guard on high alert. "There's a maintenance tunnel near the lower levels," she whispered, pulling him toward a stairwell. "It's our only chance." As they descended, heavy footsteps echoed from above. The guards were closing in. Elias tightened his grip on Lariah's hand. "We're not going to make it if they catch us." "We have to," Lariah replied, determination burning in her violet eyes. They burst through a door into the maintenance corridor, the air thick with steam from the ancient pipes. Elias winced, his bruised body protesting every movement, but he pushed forward. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from the shadows ahead of them. Lariah froze. It was Callan, one of the rebels she had trusted, but the smirk on his face sent a chill down her spine. "Going somewhere?" Callan sneered, blocking their path. "Callan," Lariah gasped. "What are you doing here?" "I should ask you the same," he replied. "We had a deal, remember? You help us, and we help you. But it seems you decided to run off on your own little adventure." Lariah's eyes narrowed. "I didn't agree to start a war. I just wanted to save him." Callan chuckled darkly. "War is inevitable, girl. And humans like him." He gestured at Elias. "They're the reason we suffer." Elias stepped forward, glaring at Callan. "I'm not your enemy." "Oh, but you are," Callan replied, drawing a weapon. "And now you're both a liability." Lariah's heart raced. She had trusted Callan, but now betrayal burned in her chest. "We don't have time for this," Elias muttered. "We need to move." Callan smirked. "You're not going anywhere." Before he could fire, Elias lunged forward, knocking the weapon from Callan's hand. A struggle ensued, but Elias, weakened from his injuries, was quickly overpowered. Lariah's mind screamed for her to act. She grabbed a nearby metal pipe and swung it with all her strength, knocking Callan unconscious. She helped Elias to his feet, but the sound of approaching guards was growing louder. "We need to go," she urged. They ran deeper into the tunnels, but their path was blocked by a thick, reinforced door. Lariah punched the control panel in frustration. No, 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 no. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll find another way. But before they could move, a voice echoed through the corridor. End of the line. They turned to see the alien officer from before, flanked by heavily armed guards. There was no escape. Lariah's hands clenched into fists. No, I won't let you take him. The officer smirked. You don't have a choice. Elias stepped in front of Lariah. It's me you want. Let her go. The officer laughed. Brave words, human. But we'll take both of you. Lariah's heart sank as they were surrounded and captured. The dream of freedom shattered. Hours later, Lariah sat alone in a dark cell, her mind swirling with fear and regret. Elias had been taken to another part of the Citadel, and she had no idea if he was even alive. She thought of Ryan, safe at home, but now she was trapped, and the one person who could have helped her was gone. Suddenly, a small holographic screen flickered to life in the corner of her cell. It was a message from Elias. Lariah. His voice came through softly. If you're seeing this, it means I didn't make it out. But you still have a chance. Don't give up. Your brother needs you. And the galaxy needs people like you. Tears streamed down Lariah's face. No, I won't leave you behind. As the screen faded, a new resolve filled her. She wasn't giving up. Not now. Because the fight wasn't over. The Great Escape. The silence of the Iron Citadel was suffocating. Lariah sat on the cold floor of her cell, her mind racing. Elias's words from the hologram echoed in her ears. Don't give up. But how could she escape when every door was locked, and every corridor swarmed with guards? Her violet eyes scanned the room, searching for anything. A weakness, a clue. She had promised Ryan she would return. She had to keep that promise. But now she also had another promise to keep. I won't leave Elias behind. Suddenly, a faint sound caught her attention. A metallic scraping coming from the air vent above her. She stood up cautiously. Lariah, a voice whispered through the vent. Her eyes widened. Ryan? Shh. Keep your voice down. Ryan's voice replied softly. I'm here to help you. Tears pricked Lariah's eyes. Ryan, how? I followed you, he whispered. I knew you'd need help. Lariah's heart swelled with pride and fear. Her little brother, fragile and recovering, had risked everything to find her. Ryan, it's too dangerous. I'm already here, he interrupted. I hacked into the security system. I can unlock the door, but only for a few seconds. You need to move fast. Lariah took a deep breath. Okay, I'm ready. A faint beep sounded, and the cell door slid open with a hiss. Lariah slipped out silently, her heart pounding. She could hear guards patrolling nearby. Which way? She whispered. Left. Ryan guided her. There's a service corridor that leads to the lower levels. Lariah followed his instructions, moving like a shadow through the maze-like halls. But her mind kept drifting back to Elias. She couldn't leave without him. Ryan, she whispered, I need to find Elias. There was a pause. Lariah, you don't have time. I'm not leaving him, she insisted. A heavy sigh came through the comm. Fine. He's being held in the high-security wing. But it's heavily guarded. I'll handle it, Lariah replied, determination in her voice. In his dark cell, Elias Carter leaned against the wall, his body bruised and weak. His thoughts were a chaotic mix of regret and hope. He had tried to save Lariah, to protect her from this place. Now, they were both trapped. He chuckled bitterly to himself. Some hero I turned out to be. Suddenly, the door to his cell creaked open. Elias blinked in disbelief as Lariah appeared. Elias, she whispered urgently. Lariah. He whispered back, barely believing his eyes. How did you? No time to explain. She cut him off. We're leaving. Now. Elias pushed himself up with effort. I'm not exactly in the best shape for a daring escape. She smiled softly. Then it's a good thing I'm here. She helped him up, supporting his weight as they navigated the dim corridors. But just as they reached a service hatch, alarms blared again. They know we're here, Elias muttered. Loraya gritted her teeth. We need to hurry. As they reached the lower levels, Ryan's voice crackled in their ears. Loraya, you've got incoming. Lots of them. Elias glanced at Loraya. We're not going to make it. We have to, she replied firmly. Suddenly, a door slid open ahead of them, and Callan appeared, his weapon raised. Leaving so soon? He sneered. Loraya's eyes burned with anger. You betrayed me. Callan chuckled. I betrayed everyone. But you're not going anywhere. Before he could fire, Elias lunged at him, knocking the weapon away. A brutal fight ensued, fists and weapons clashing. Elias, though weakened, fought with everything he had. Loraya watched helplessly, torn between helping him and finding a way out. Loraya, the escape pod bay is just ahead. Ryan's voice urged her. She hesitated. But, go, Elias shouted as he struggled with Callan. Tears streaming down her face, Loraya ran toward the escape pods. She activated one, but then froze. She couldn't leave him. Not after everything. Turning back, she saw Elias finally overpower Callan, but guards were closing in. Loraya rushed back, grabbing Elias's hand. We're leaving. Together. He shook his head. There's only one pod. She stared at him, heartbroken. I'm not leaving you. But Elias, with a sad smile, pressed a button, sealing her inside the pod. Elias, no, she screamed, pounding on the glass. He leaned close. Live, Loraya. That's all that matters. With a final glance, the pod launched, carrying Loraya away from the citadel. She watched as Elias was surrounded by guards, her heart shattering. As she drifted through space, Loraya whispered, I will come back for you, Elias. I swear. The great escape had cost her everything. But this wasn't the end. The sacrifice. The stars blurred through the glass of the escape pod as Loraya drifted further from the iron citadel. Her hands trembled as she clutched the sides of her seat, her violet eyes filled with tears. She could still see Elias's face in her mind. The quiet determination, the painful smile as he sealed her fate and chose to stay behind. Her heart ached with guilt. I promised I wouldn't leave him. But now, Elias was alone, captured, and possibly. Loraya shook her head violently. She refused to think about what the guards might do to him. He had sacrificed his chance at freedom for her. I won't let it end like this. Suddenly, the pod's communication system crackled to life. Loraya. Ryan's voice came through, filled with panic and relief. You made it out. Loraya swallowed the lump in her throat. I made it, but Elias, he's still there. There was silence on the other end. Then, Ryan whispered, I'm so sorry. I'm going back, Loraya said firmly, her voice shaking but resolute. Ryan's response was immediate. No, you can't. The citadel is on high alert. You'll never make it back inside. I have to try, Loraya replied. He gave up everything for me. For us. Ryan's voice softened. But if you go back now, you'll die too. Loraya closed her eyes, the weight of her brother's words settling on her shoulders. She knew he was right. Charging back into the citadel would be suicide. But doing nothing felt worse. The pod's navigation system beeped, signaling their approach to a safe zone far from the citadel's reach. As the pod docked with a hidden rebel base on the outskirts of Orvax 9, Loraya stepped out, her heart heavy with grief and anger. The rebel base was dimly lit, filled with old tech and worn-out aliens who had long given up hope. Loraya scanned the room, searching for someone. Anyone who could help her. Then, a familiar voice made her freeze. Well, look who survived. Loraya turned to see Callan, sitting casually in the corner, a smirk playing on his lips despite the bruises Elias had left him with. Her fists clenched at her sides. "You?" Kalen chuckled. "Did you miss me, little alien girl?" Lereia stormed over to him, her voice low and dangerous. "Where is Elias?" Kalen leaned back, pretending to think. Last I saw, he was being dragged off by the guards. I doubt he's alive anymore." Lereia's eyes burned with fury. "You betrayed me. You betrayed all of us." Kalen's smirk faltered for a moment. "It's not betrayal when you're looking out for yourself. Something you should learn." Without warning, Lereia grabbed a nearby metal rod and slammed it against the table in front of him, making Kalen jump. "Help me get him back," she demanded, her voice shaking with rage. Kalen laughed bitterly. "And why would I do that?" "Because if you don't," Lereia leaned in closer, her eyes narrowing, "I'll make sure everyone in this base knows exactly how you sold them out." Kalen's smile faded. He knew she wasn't bluffing. After a tense silence, he sighed. "Fine, but this is your suicide mission, not mine." Back at the Iron Citadel, Elias Carter sat in a dark, damp cell, his body battered and bruised. The guards had made sure he felt every bit of their anger for his attempted escape, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the ache in his chest. Lereia is safe. That thought kept him going. Suddenly, the cell door creaked open, and the alien officer from before stepped in, a cruel smile on his face. "Still alive, human?" Elias chuckled weakly. "Unfortunately for you, yeah." The officer's smile widened. "Not for long. Your execution is scheduled for tomorrow." Elias's heart skipped a beat, but he forced a smirk. "I'll try to get some rest then." The officer laughed and left, leaving Elias alone with his thoughts. Tomorrow. He leaned his head back against the wall, whispering to himself, "Guess this is it." Meanwhile, Lereia and Kalen navigated a stolen ship through the darkness of space, heading straight for the Citadel. "I still think this is insane," Kalen muttered. "I don't care," Lereia shot back. "We're getting him out." As they approached the Citadel, alarms blared once again. But this time, Lereia was ready. She activated the ship's cloaking device, making them invisible to sensors. Kalen grinned. "Maybe you're not so useless after all." "Shut up and land the ship," Lereia replied. They docked at a hidden maintenance port, slipping into the Citadel unnoticed. Where would they take a human prisoner before execution? Lereia asked. Kalen thought for a moment. The detention block near the main control room. "Then that's where we're going," Lereia said. As they moved through the Citadel, the clock was ticking. Elias had only hours left, but Lereia wasn't leaving without him, even if it meant sacrificing everything. A final goodbye. The stolen ship hummed softly as it remained cloaked near the Iron Citadel, blending into the endless darkness of space. Inside, Lereia paced nervously, her heart pounding like a drum. Every second wasted was another moment closer to Elias's execution. Kalen, leaning casually against the control panel, watched her with mild amusement. "You're going to wear a hole in the floor if you keep that up." Lereia shot him a glare. "I don't have time for your jokes." Kalen chuckled. "Relax, little alien. We'll get your human hero, or die trying." "That's not funny," she snapped. He shrugged. "Wasn't meant to be." Lereia took a deep breath. She had to focus. Elias needed her. She thought of his calm green eyes, his quiet strength, and his selfless sacrifice. She couldn't fail him now. "I won't fail him." Kalen pulled up a holographic map of the Citadel. "All right, here's the plan. The detention block is heavily guarded, but the execution chamber is even worse. Lucky for you, I know a few back doors." "Why am I not surprised?" Lereia muttered. Kalen grinned. "Perks of being a traitor." Lereia ignored him. "We need to move fast. Ryan said the execution is at dawn." Kalen nodded. "Then let's make sure the sun doesn't rise for our dear human friend." Elias sat alone in his cell, staring at the ceiling. The bruises on his body throbbed with every heartbeat, but the pain was dull now. His mind was elsewhere, on Lariah, on Ryan, on everything he had left behind. He chuckled softly to himself. Funny how life turns out. Suddenly, a faint noise caught his attention. He sat up, straining to listen. Footsteps. No, something else. A whisper. Elias. He froze. He knew that voice. Lariah? He whispered back, unsure if he was imagining it. The wall panel slid open just a crack, and Lariah's face appeared, her violet eyes sparkling with determination. "Miss me?" she whispered with a smirk. Elias blinked in disbelief. "Lariah, what are you doing here?" "Saving you, obviously," she whispered back. Kellen's voice chimed in from behind her. "You can thank me later." Elias frowned. Him. Really? Lariah rolled her eyes. "Long story. Let's go." She quickly unlocked the door, helping Elias to his feet. He winced in pain, but his grip on her arm was strong. "Can you walk?" she asked softly. "I'll crawl if I have to," he replied with a smirk. "Good, because we don't have time for breaks," Kellen interrupted. They moved through the dark corridors, Lariah supporting Elias as Callan led the way. But as they approached the exit, alarms suddenly blared throughout the citadel. Callan groaned. "Really? Every time." "Looks like they know we're here," Elias muttered. "Brilliant observation," Callan replied sarcastically. Lariah's eyes darted around. "We need another way out." Callan nodded. "The maintenance hatch leads to the lower docks. We can steal a ship from there." "Then let's move," Lariah urged. The chase through the citadel was intense. Guards swarmed the hallways, their weapons blazing as they pursued the trio. Elias, despite his injuries, fired back with precision, covering Lariah and Callan as they ran. Lariah's heart raced with adrenaline. She had come too far to fail now. Finally, they'd reached the lower docks, but a new problem awaited them. Only one ship was operational. Callan cursed under his breath. "Of course." Lariah turned to Elias. "We can all fit in, right?" Callan shook his head. "No chance. That ship's fuel is barely enough for one person, let alone three." Elias's face hardened. He knew what had to be done. "No," Lariah whispered, realizing his thoughts. "Lariah," Elias began softly. "No, don't you dare," she shouted, tears welling in her eyes. Callan stepped back awkwardly. "Bah, I'll just give you two a moment." Elias cupped Lariah's face gently, his thumb wiping away her tears. "You need to go." "No," she whispered fiercely. "Not without you." Elias smiled sadly. "You have a life to live. Ryan needs you. The galaxy needs you." Tears streamed down Lariah's face. "I need you." Elias leaned his forehead against hers. "I'll always be with you." Before she could protest further, Elias activated the ship's system and gently pushed her inside. She pounded on the glass as it sealed. "Elias, please," she screamed. He placed a hand on the glass, whispering, "Goodbye, Lariah." With a heavy heart, he launched the ship, sending Lariah to safety as guards swarmed in. Callan, watching the emotional scene, muttered, "Humans, always so dramatic." Elias chuckled softly. "Tell me about it." The guards aimed their weapons. Elias raised his hands, surrendering. But in his eyes, there was no fear, only peace. Lariah, drifting through space, sobbed silently. She had lost him. But this wasn't the end. Humanity's legacy. The stars stretched endlessly as Lariah's stolen ship floated through the cold emptiness of space. She sat in the pilot's seat, her violet eyes red from tears. The silence was deafening. Elias was gone. Her mind replayed his final words over and over. "Goodbye, Lariah." "No," she whispered softly, her voice cracking. "This can't be the end." But deep down she knew. She had left him behind. He had sacrificed himself. For her, for Ryan, for Hope. The ship's autopilot beeped, signaling their approach to a small hidden station near the asteroid belt. As the ship docked, Lariah felt numb. She stumbled out, her legs weak. Ryan was waiting for her. His face lit up at first, but then fell when he saw her expression. "Where's Elias?" he asked softly. Lariah couldn't hold back her tears. She fell to her knees, sobbing. He's gone." Ryan knelt beside her, wrapping his small arms around her. "I'm sorry," he whispered. For a long time, they sat there in silence, sharing the weight of their grief. Days turned into weeks. Life on Orvax 9 continued, but for Lariah, everything felt hollow. She went through the motions, helping Ryan recover, working odd jobs to survive, but her heart felt lost. Every night, she stared at the stars, hoping for a miracle. But none came. Until one day, a message arrived. A small holographic device blinked to life on their table. Lariah almost didn't notice it at first, but when she did, her heart skipped a beat. "Elias," she whispered, hoping against hope. But the hologram that appeared wasn't Elias, it was Callan. "Miss me?" he grinned. Lariah's expression hardened. "What do you want?" Callan chuckled. "Relax. I come in peace. Thought you might want to know. Your human hero. He's alive." Lariah's eyes widened. "What?" Surprised. Callan smirked. "The guards didn't kill him. They're keeping him in a high-security facility on Epsilon Prime." Lariah's heart raced. Why would they keep him alive? Callan leaned closer. "Because humans like him. They inspire rebellion. Killing him would make him a martyr. But keeping him alive, that breaks hope." Lariah's fists clenched. "Where is he?" Callan sighed. "You're not going to like this, but it's nearly impossible to get him out." "I don't care," Lariah shot back. "Tell me where he is." Callan's smirk returned. "I thought you'd say that." The journey to Epsilon Prime was dangerous. The planet was heavily guarded, and the facility where Elias was kept was known as the Fortress of Chains, a prison built to hold the galaxy's most dangerous beings. Lariah didn't care. She was going to save him. With Ryan safe in the care of trusted friends, Lariah prepared for what might be her last mission. As she approached Epsilon Prime, memories of Elias flooded her mind. His sacrifice, his courage, his humanity. She whispered to herself, "Hold on, Elias. I'm coming." Inside the Fortress of Chains, Elias sat in his cell, staring at the ceiling. His body was weak, but his spirit remained unbroken. He thought of Lariah, hoping she was safe, hoping she was free. Suddenly, the cell door beeped. Elias sat up, confused, and then it slid open. Standing there, breathing heavily, was Lariah. Elias blinked, thinking he was hallucinating. "Lariah?" She grinned despite the danger around them. "Miss me?" Elias chuckled softly. "You're impossible." "Good thing, too," she replied, helping him up. But their escape wouldn't be easy. Alarms blared as guards flooded the corridors. "We're not getting out of here," Elias muttered. "Yes, we are," Lariah insisted. As they ran, dodging blasts and returning fire, Elias glanced at her. "Why did you come back?" Lariah's eyes softened. "Because that's what humans do." Elias laughed, even as chaos surrounded them. "I thought that was my line." Their escape was narrow, but they made it. As their stolen ship soared through the stars, Elias looked at Lariah with gratitude and something deeper. "You saved me," he whispered. Lariah smiled. "We save each other." Back on Orvax 9, life slowly returned to normal. But something had changed. Lariah and Elias became symbols of hope, not just for aliens, but for everyone. Years later, Ryan, now a young doctor, smiled as he watched his sister and Elias work together to bring peace to the galaxy. "Because that's what humans do," he whispered, carrying forward the legacy of sacrifice, hope, and humanity.